Imagine an ordinary evening in a football stadium. The cheers rise, the final whistle closes a match full of emotion. But what if that moment did not end with a handshake, but ended with the sound of bombs, the roar of fighter jet engines, and thousands of people dead? In 1969, two small countries in Central America, El Salvador and Honduras, officially went to war with each other. The world called it the Football War. A name that sounds strange, even absurd. But the truth is, no one died because of football. Football was only the matchstick. The powder keg had been smoldering for years. El Salvador is one of the smallest countries in Central America. Yet it has the highest population density in the region. Crowded fields, fragmented land, and shrinking chances of survival. To the north, Honduras was far larger. Its land was fertile, but most of it lay in the hands of large landowners and powerful agricultural corporations. From the early 20th century, waves of Salvadorans began crossing the border. They carried no political ambitions. They carried only one simple desire: to find a piece of land to live on. More than 300,000 Salvadorans settled in Honduras. They became tenant farmers. They became cheap labor. And gradually, they became the lowest class in society. At first, their presence was accepted. But when the economy declined, when social pressure increased, they began to be seen as invaders. Not because they were dangerous, but because they were the easiest to blame. By the late 1960s, Honduras entered a highly controversial land reform program. The government should have confronted the wealthy landowners. But instead of doing the difficult thing, they chose the easier path. Seizing land from Salvadoran immigrants. Tens of thousands of families were forcibly evicted. Homes were destroyed. Communities were driven out in violence and humiliation. Streams of desperate people returned to El Salvador carrying stories of lost land, lost homes, and lost dignity. The border between the two countries became an open wound. Resentment accumulated day by day. Diplomatic relations fell to their lowest point. And then football appeared. In June 1969, El Salvador and Honduras met in the qualifiers for the 1970 World Cup. 3 matches. 3 times emotions spilled beyond the limits of sport. Fans provoked one another. Jeers turned into violence. The press in both countries did not calm tensions, but continuously fueled nationalism. The stadium was no longer a place for sport, but a place to vent anger. After the final playoff match, El Salvador emerged victorious. Immediately afterward, its government announced the severing of diplomatic relations with Honduras. The border became a flashpoint. Football ended. War began. At dawn on July 14, 1969, the sky over Honduras was torn apart by the sound of aircraft engines. El Salvador launched a full-scale military offensive. Artillery rained fire down on border towns. Infantry crossed borders that had once been nothing more than thin fences. Both sides used aircraft dating back to World War II. A war fought in a classic style, but with entirely modern consequences. The front lines expanded rapidly. Within a few days, more than 2,000 people were killed. Hundreds of thousands of civilians were forced to flee their homes. Villages turned into piles of ashes. Fields became battlefields. Children did not understand why their homes were destroyed. The elderly did not understand why neighbors became enemies. The war lasted exactly 100 hours. Brief, but brutal. Under pressure from the international community, especially the Organization of American States, both sides were forced to agree to a ceasefire. Soldiers withdrew. Aircraft stopped flying. Artillery fell silent. But peace did not mean healing. Salvadorans lost land and livelihoods in Honduras. Honduras fell into economic and political instability. Relations between the two countries remained frozen for more than a decade. Football returned to its proper role. Matches were played again. Crowds cheered once more. But history cannot be replayed from the beginning. Calling it the football war is a simplification. Because this war never truly began with a match. It began with land being taken. With prolonged poverty. With populist politics. And with the use of nationalist emotion to conceal failures of governance. Football was only the last drop that made the cup overflow. When society is suppressed long enough, even the smallest event can become a reason for violence. This is not only the story of El Salvador and Honduras. It is a universal lesson of history. When governments fail to solve real problems, they create false enemies. When people lose hope, they are more likely to believe in hatred. And when nationalist emotion is exploited, war becomes the easiest choice. The football war reminds us that no war truly begins because of sport. It always begins because of people.